Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of my Pro Unreal Engine 5 game developer series here on YouTube. Today, we're going to take a look at the Hide, Seek, Survive game plugin and why that is so important. So, as I went into when we were creating the CCS Core plugin in the last one, the reason why we're developing everything into plugins is that so we can very easily migrate code from project to project. So for CCS Core, the intent of that plugin is that whenever we start a new game, we'll start off with that code base. So everything in that plugin has to apply to any possible game that you could make. What you'll see, though, is as we start making Hide, Seek, Survive, there'll be functionality in there that we wouldn't want in, say, a first-person shooter game we make down the line. So any of that functionality we need to put into a plugin specific to Hide, Seek, Survive. Hence the Hide, Seek, Survive game plugin. And this one, in theory, could be applied to another code base. So if in the future we decide to make a sequel for Hide, Seek, Survive, we can migrate that over to the new project and we'll be ahead of the game. The whole plugin use that I'm emphasizing here is really important, especially when you're working as a solo dev, because you have a lot to do, quite honestly, and working smarter, not harder, is always good if you can take advantage of just structuring your code base a little bit differently to make things easier on yourself. And without further ado, let's get right into it. So, per usual, we find ourselves at our Jira board in the backlog, and we're going to create a new issue. And we'll call it create and fill in HSS plugin. HSSGame plugin. And press enter. And we'll slide that up. Alright, looking good. And we'll fill out the description. So as always, when I'm done typing, just pause and copy everything. But in a nutshell, what we're going to be doing is creating the plugin and then making child classes that inherit from CCS Core, matching all of the classes that we made in the last couple of lectures for CCS Core. And that's what we're going to be doing. So then I'll assign the task to me, and we'll apply the engineering label. And in terms of parent, it'll just be that get started epic, as usual. And we want to save the description. And we are all good, I believe. So yeah, just copy that as needed, and we'll pull it up into the board, and we'll go over to the board and throw this into in progress, and we can get to work. Alright, so over in Perforce, we're going to make a new numbered change list for this task. Because as I said, one change list per task. That's the best way of doing it, so that's what we're going to do. Alright. So now we want to go into, we'll just delete the build now, because we're going to need it later. Never mind, I didn't delete it. Doesn't matter if you did, though. So we'll open up our solution, And then we're going to open up the Hide, Seek, Survive project so we can go create that plugin. It should open relatively quickly. All right, there we go. So now that we have this open, we have to go make our plugin. So we'll do the same thing we did last time. File, it's actually edit plugins. Then we press the little add, and we want a blank plugin. And we're going to call this HSSGame. And I'm going to put me as the author. You can put you. And we'll just say that this is the code base for Hide, Seek, Survive. And that everything will inherit from CCS core. From its CCS core counterpart. It's probably a better description. So we'll go with that. And now we can press create plugin. So by now you're a pro at creating the plugins. And speaking of that, when I create all the classes, I'm going to do that pretty quickly, or else this video is going to be like 2 hours long. So if you have any questions about what I'm doing, just go back to the last 2 lectures where we create all the classes and fill out the boilerplate code slower with more explanation. All right, so we can see that our plugin is there, so that's good. And we're going to find that we don't have a C++ folder for this plugin yet because we haven't made a C++ class. So just to make sure everything worked, we're just going to build the game again with the plugin in there. And it should be fine without doing that, but just to be safe. Never hurt anything, I guess. Because anytime you make a major code change, like adding a plugin, relying on the live coding isn't the best. So we just made sure everything was good. And now we can start making the classes for our plugin. And we're going to just go down the list in Perforce to make sure we make all the classes. And we're going to keep the names and folder structure consistent. So we want to go to C++ classes, create new class. And then again, we're just going to look in Perforce and make sure we're making the right classes and calling them the right things. Because this game plugin should correspond one-to-one with the CCS core plugin. So first we have the anim instance. And very important, we want to make sure this derives from the CCS version. So we can just call it anim instance HSS. And we'll throw that in the animation folder. And don't forget to click public and change that to HSSGame. Very important. So don't forget it. Alright, create class. And now we wait. And yeah, we're just going to do this for all the classes. I believe we're going to get an error right here. Nothing yet. And there it is, build failed. And the reason is going to be very similar to the AI controller issue we had last time, where it's not going to be able to find the CCS core plugin version of the anim instance. And that's because we haven't told the plugin that we need access to the CCS core plugin. So yeah, same thing we fixed last time. And we can go to the build and see it's not finding that include file, which is expected. Alright, so we open up the .builds.cs. We go down to those private dependency module names. And we'll add a line for CCS core. Yeah, just add it in that private dependency module names. And that should be it. And we'll close it down and reopen it just to make sure that worked correctly. Yeah, we're actually going to delete the intermediate and binaries and rebuild the project files to make sure the plugin regenerates properly and to get rid of all those little squiggly lines. So as always, we're waiting for the intermediate folder to pop up. Then we know we're ready. Okay, there it is. So now we can go back to our solution file. Open that up. Yeah, and if you see something like this, just say no. So we're looking good. And we're going to build again and make sure we don't get any errors. And I believe I saw a warning. Yes, I did. Yeah, so this is an example of a warning that you could, in theory, just completely ignore. But we are never going to do that. So we'll open up the HSSGame.u plugin, and we need to add a reference to the CCS core plugin inside of here to clear that warning. So we're just going to paste something in here and just copy what I write. So see that little plugins section with CCS core and enabled true? Just copy that exactly with the same parentheses and spaces, etc. And you should be all set. But yeah, as we build this again and notice that the warning is gone, there is no better way to irritate people you work with if you are on a software development team than basically cluttering the build log with all sorts of warnings that can easily be cleaned up. You should always treat warnings as errors, even though it'll technically let you run. Always be looking at that build log and make sure you don't have any warnings. So with all that being said, we're going to start making more classes now. So we can see that anim instance is there. So we'll go into Perforce and keep going. So next it'll be camera comp, and again we want camera comp CCS. And I don't know if you, oh sorry, it's camera comp HSS is what we're going to be making. And we put it in the cameras folder. And I don't know if you guys are noticing, but in the engine, when I'm hovering over the classes in the CCS plugin, we're actually seeing our description that we typed in when we were doing the boilerplate stuff in engine. It pops up. So that's why it's really important to format the comments in that way, because that's the format that the engine is expecting. And it's really nice being able to see the description you have in your code base in engine. Okay, so we made the camera. That's all good. Next, we have the player camera manager. So again, we have that. And we're going to change the name to player camera manager HSS. And that should be good. So we'll create the class. And we are going to have a lot of boilerplate code to write, but don't worry, we'll just do that at the end. And as you saw when I was doing it last time, we're just going to need to fill in the description for most of them. So it's not going to take as long as you would think. So now we have the player camera manager done. So we can move on to the character comps. And first we have the character movement comp. So we'll get that going. Yeah, and make sure you put it in the right folder, or else you're going to have an issue. And we showed how to fix that in episode 5, I believe. Actually, it was 6. So yeah, change the CCS, sorry, to HSS. And we want that in the character comps folder. Yeah, excuse me on that. This is a lot of acronyms that sound very similar. So if I screw something up, it happens, I guess. Alright, so we create the class. Yeah, and as I was saying, as we slog through this, just making classes over and over again, next time we're actually going to get into the coding, and you'll be able to possess your character and spawn into the game with your character that you made. So that's going to be very exciting. So with that being said, let's keep making these classes. And now we have the input comp, CCS. And we'll change it to HSS. Create class. Yeah, we haven't seen an error in a while, so that's good. Just clear out those little errors there. It'll be okay, and if it's not, we'll add everything manually at the end. Alright, we're almost done. So now we have our character that we have to add. So we want it deriving from our character CCS and change the name to HSS, just like all the other ones. And throw it in the characters folder. Okay, live coding succeeded. Another error from the plugin. Now we'll do our controllers, and we're probably going to get that same AI controller error. I forgot to fix that while we were adding the CCS Core plugin to the public dependency names. Sorry, the private dependency names. So we'll add our AI controller. And yeah, it failed again. But at least we know how to fix it now. Yeah, see, I immediately go to the build.cs and realize I forgot what I did. Yeah, so we can just go right to the CCS core one and copy over the AI module. Just to make sure we don't have to go look it up again, because that was a disaster last time. So just put a space after CCS core and throw it in there. And no need to rebuild binaries, just build again. And that should fix it. And sure enough, the build succeeded, so we can keep going. So we'll open up the project again and add the last few classes we have here. 5 more, if I have my count right. So next we'll have the player controller. And remember, always derive from the CCS core version. So create the class. And now we just have the game framework. And then we can get into the boilerplate. Alright, so now we have the game instance. And we need to make sure to inherit from the right one. And put it in the game framework folder. And then we can create class once we have that all filled out. Alright, our live coding is done. So next up we have, let's see which one we make. The game mode. So game mode HSS. And keep it in that game framework folder. and create class. Next up, we'll have the game state, I believe, but only two more. Our plugin errored out again, but that's okay. So next up, we'll have the game state, so we'll go make that. So search for game state CCS. And change the name again. Keep it in game framework. And then we can press create class. Alright, looking good. And last but not least, we have the player state. So player state CCS. Change the name. And create class. And once this finishes, we can finally move on to the boilerplate code. And then when that's all done, we can call it a day. Again, I know this is pretty grueling. It's a little grueling to record, honestly, just the making the classes over and over again. But we are almost through the initial setup phase. So congratulations again on making so much progress. Alright, so now we can start with the boilerplate. And we'll start with the player state. And we'll do the same thing as last time and grab the game instance and just copy that in there. And we'll need to update this a little bit. So instead of the Camp and Carl Studios plugin, we'll say the Hide Seek Survive plugin. And we'll get rid of that part because we're going to need to write something different. And you see I write game instance just out of autopilot typing, I guess. See how long it takes me to realize my mistake. So yeah, we're just saying that it's inheriting from CCS core. And just like the other one, we'll say it doesn't have any additional functionality yet. But it's here for future expansion. And then we'll keep the tags the same as the other one. And we'll get rid of that space, as always, in the CPP file. And in the game state, we're going to paste it in. And you see, I realized, oh, nope, closed it down. Oh, because I grabbed the wrong one. So paste it in. Oh, and there we go. I realized my mistake. And there we go. Now I'll fix it in the player state. Alright, so that one's looking good. And the game state is as well. And again, I'm gonna fly through this because we already did it. So any questions about what I'm doing, go back to the last two videos, and I'm sure they'll be answered. Alright, same thing with the game mode. Just swap out those names of the class. And that should be all we have to do. Get rid of the little space. Move on to the game instance. And just do the exact same thing. And as you can see, my mistake from the last time finally pays off because game instance is already written in there. So that's good. And we'll get rid of the space and move over to the player controller and do the exact same thing. And we're about halfway through these now, so that's good. Making progress. Then we have the AI controller. And remember A lowercase I. It really bothers me having the 3 capital letters in a row. As we have 4 in the CCS Core plugin name, but just ignore that, I guess. And we'll save the character for last. Because if you remember, we're going to have to put in that special constructor for the character. So we'll get rid of all these generic ones first before we step into that. And speaking of generic descriptions, we have the input component now. So we'll just swap that out. Alright, this one's looking good. And we can get rid of our space and then get going on the character movement component. So same thing for this one, just paste that in. Replace player state with character movement component. And do the same with the game instance text. Then on to the player camera manager. Same story. And we get rid of the space. Now we're on to the camera component. And we can only see 2 more, so we are almost done. And hopefully it's going to be a while before we have to do this again. But this is why we use the plugin, so now hopefully you are never going to have to do this again. Well, I guess that isn't true, because you'll make a new game plugin when you make a new game. But I digress. Alright, now we have the anim instance. And then we'll go back and take care of the character, and then we are all set. Alright, we can close that down. Now we have the character. And we'll copy in the description. And we're going to write a bit more of a detailed description for the character, because it disables tick, and we specify our custom character movement component. And this is going to be the hide, seek, survive character movement component, not the CCS core version, just to clarify. So now we're going to go to our character CCS so we can copy the constructor. So you're going to need the .h and the .cpp. And we can just copy all of that and make a public specifier. And then we can close off our region. And we need to replace the CCS with HSS. And we can honestly just keep the comment the same. That's fine. And now we need to copy over the actual constructor. And all we're going to need to change is the name of the character movement component. Well, and the component itself. Just HSS. And same thing with the character movement. And now we need to put in the include file. So we'll find that in character comps. And there we go. And there we go. Okay, so now we're all done. We can get into the review portion, and then we can call it a day. So we kick off the build, and we can move this into in review. And that is all done. And we can delete that build so it's ready for the new one. And we'll open up hide, seek, survive. We'll package it up, and then we can call this done. So we have to wait for that packaging to query. Any minute now. There it goes. And we start the packaging, and I'll skip ahead until mine is done. Alright, our packaging succeeded. So now we can close everything down. And we can make sure everything got added. We can also mark the content folder for add. But we don't have any content in there, so it's not going to do anything. And again, don't add intermediate or binaries. So we're missing the anim instance. We got both the cameras. Alright, so we just missed the anim instance. So we also need to mark the header file for add. Alright, all this looks good. Yeah, so don't add those two. And then we can quickly look through here and make sure we just have what we wanted to add, and we did. So we want to move all those to the numbered change set. And we can submit it. So we'll send that on its way. And now we can throw this into done. And I realized that I forgot to test the package project. But that's fine. Yeah, change list 36. But to start the next video, for completeness sake, I will test the new packaged project to make sure it all worked. But yeah, we are all set. So now we have our HSSGame plugin as well as CCS Core, and that means we are ready to start programming the character. So that's very exciting. And by the time we are done with the next video, you guys are going to have a playable version of the character for Hide, Seek, Survive. So very exciting stuff, and congratulations on making it this far. I'm also going to close out this getting started epic. Honestly, I'm a little sick of looking at it, and I didn't originally plan to make a character epic, but I think we're going to need one. So with all that being said, thank you so much for watching, as always. Definitely leave this video a like or a comment to let me know that you're appreciating what I'm doing here. It definitely helps more people find my videos, and that'll benefit them significantly because this is a very high quality series, and I don't want people wasting money on Unreal classes when they can just watch this for free. So definitely thank you for liking and commenting to help more people find this series. And definitely subscribe as well so you can keep up with the series and get notified when the next video comes out. So with all that being said, thank you so much again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.